All right, so that's recording.
Your name?
My name's Gary Gilbert. Okay, there we go. So let me just preface this by saying what the purpose of what we're doing is. The library is interested in interviewing as many veterans as possible, just to get a record of who the Cherry Hill citizens are that served in the military. The initial thought was to get as many World War II veterans as possible because
There are only 3 left.
it's just about, but they figured they'd expand it to all military personnel just because it's so interesting to find out, what the citizens of our town have done on the national level. So that being said, we're basically, I'm going to ask you some questions, but I'm really looking for you to tell me what you think is important. I'll ask you questions that are pretty easy, and just let it go wherever you want to take it.
Okay.
So anyways, I'll start off, can you state name, rank of where you live, that could just, so we have that on tape.
My name is George Evans. I grew up in Louisiana. I live here in Cherry Hill now. My final rank in the Navy was Chief Warrant Officer, W4.
And what years were you in the service?
June 59 to February 83.
Which is,
23 years, 7 months, 29 days, and 10 hours.
10 hours, you sure about no
Yeah, well,
minutes?
you get sworn in at 2 in the afternoon, and you're out at midnight. So that's where the 10 hours comes from.
Great. So,
And for instance, you got 29 days. Strangely enough, all enlisted people are discharged on the 30th of the month. Retired on the 30th of the month. Officers are retired on the 1st of the month. So that's where the 29 days come from.
great. So, can you tell us a little bit about your life before service?
Yeah. Life before the service was pretty much non-existent. You're talking Louisiana in the 40s and 50s. I always say we lived so far back in the woods they had to bring in sunlight. There was basically, as a kid, obviously I thought it was a good life. I had no idea what it was until I grew up and left. The town I grew up in had a population of about 400 people, and it's even less now. Had 1 traffic light, and 2 cotton gins, and a post office, and 2 stores, and that was about it. Went to school in the parish seat or county seat, as you know, which is about 9 miles away. So busing was, when people think busing is something new, everybody was bused back in those days. The town wasn't big enough to have a school.
So, then what made you want to go into the service?
Believe it or not, when I was a kid growing up during World War II, the military was, was the thing. There was an army base nearby, Fort Polk, so you always saw soldiers around. And even back in the Bible, there were soldiers. It seemed like the thing to do.
But you ended up in the Navy.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Taken the, I'd gone down with a buddy of mine who was talking about joining the Army, the Navy. And we just took the test and we were 16 years or so. And I had gotten into a fight with a kid who later became my brother-in-law. And I decided if I don't get out of town, somebody's going to get hurt and it's not going to be me. So I went down, I was going to join the Air Force. The Air Force recruiter wasn't there. I just went right across the hall and joined the Navy. I escaped into the Navy.
So after you you enlisted and went where for boot camp?
Well, I enlisted June '59. I went to boot camp, basically 2nd of June. The 3rd of June I was in San Diego in boot camp. And boot camp, I think at the time, was 9 weeks long. I got out of boot camp in mid-August of '59. And from there, I went to Treasure Island. And I thought Treasure Island was just something from a story, but it's an actual island in San Francisco Bay. And that's where the World's Fair was held. I think it was 1939, something like that. It's the connection point between the bridges that go from San Francisco to Oakland.
Sure,
There's an island, there's a landmass there. Treasure Island is part of that landmass. Lots of people know it as Iberra Island.
And it's a Navy facility?
It was until recently. It was. I suppose that during World War II it had guns in it and it was heavily defended, something like that, because it was the entrance to San Francisco Bay.
Sure.
But when I went there, it was a school command, electronic school, radar school, I guess.
So is that the job you were trained for?
Nah, I flunked out of school in the 3rd week. But I went to sea, and about the first day out there, I realized chipping paint on deck in the cold wind and rain is not the way to go. So I started talking to this guy that worked in a little room right near where I was working, and I used to talk to him all the time. I had put in a request to go to the sonar group because they seemed to be easy job and they had clean clothes all the time. And that request got disapproved, but the guy I had been talking to says, I'll take him. And he turned out to be a fire controlman. Okay. And fire controlman doesn't have anything to do with firefighting. It's gunfire control. Okay. So I ended up learning to work on radars. And that was I got to the ship on the 31st of October. And about March, I put in a request to go back to school. And in June, I started back to basic electronics again for weapon systems. There's no difference between weapon systems, electronics, and any other electronics. I went through 19 weeks of electronics school at San Diego, and then went through another 12 weeks of
Excuse us.
No, it's fine. Keep going. I had it on Do Not Disturb.
went to after the 19 weeks of basic electronics, I went to advanced schools. That was radars, computers, and that kind of thing. So I was basically learning a gunfire control system. And eventually I became more radar specialized. Computers in those days were pretty much filled up half of this room. It was a big mechanical monster. And no one really thought anything about computers. They were just a box that sat there. And
So were you involved with aiming the guns, or?
well, let me tell you how a system works.
Oh, okay.
It's strange, I ran into some kids and they thought you shoot planes down with radar. You do not. What happens is you send out a signal, okay? The signal hits whatever's out there and bounces back, and that's how you detect targets. Okay, from that target detection, once you get two radar hits on the target, okay, you know just about everything there is to know about it. You know exactly where it's located, what the direction of travel is. Once you know that, you can predict where the target is going to be. So it's like when you're out duck hunting, you don't shoot at the duck, you shoot where the duck is going to be. Okay, that's what the fire control system does. It points the gun. no one physically aims the gun. The system
Oh.
points the gun automatically, and you just close the firing key and it goes boom, boom, boom.
So at that point you learned that, and then you were assigned to a ship?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my second ship that I was assigned to at that time. Both were destroyers. Destroyers have a crew of about, I guess, had a crew of about 250 people.
So this is in the early 60s now we're talking about,
Yeah,
correct?
this is mid '61.
Okay, so there's no wars going on.
No.
Korea's over.
Yeah.
Vietnam's yet to start.
Yeah. Well, no one knew about Vietnam. It was still called Indochina in those days.
So what are you doing? I mean, where are you going? Where are you stationed at this point?
The first ship I was stationed in Long Beach, California, and that was good because I had relatives that lived in Compton, so I'd go out and drive them crazy every weekend. The second ship I was in San Diego, and I just did what all the other kids did. You know, I just hung around. As a matter of fact, most of the time I went up to Compton on the weekends because it was only 125 miles. Just catch the bus on Friday and go up and come back on Sunday. Just hanging out and doing nothing, being useless. You know, drinking beer illegally, and all that stuff.
But it sounds like you're enjoying it.
Oh, hey, it was. I was the kind of sailor that every sailor thinks he's going to be.
So by that, I think you're telling me you're not married at this point.
Oh no! In '61, I was 19 years old. Not even thinking about getting married. As a matter of fact, I did get engaged, but she was in the Navy too, and she got sent to Pensacola, Florida, and I was in San Diego, and we just decided that it's not a practical thing to do. So after we broke up, I came back and re-enlisted. I put in a request to re-enlist, and they disapproved my request. And I said, why? He said, well, you're just doing this to get even with your girlfriend. I go, are you out of your mind? How's that going to get even with her? Well, you never listen to us when we try to talk to you about re-enlistment. Well, I don't need a re-enlistment speech. I came in to do 20. So I re-enlisted, and I went to advanced electronic school. And when I say advanced, in the first week of school, they're teaching you basic math, okay? 1 + 1 = 3. Actually, 1 + 1 = 2. And at the end of 3 weeks, you're doing rate of change, differential calculus, slopes and all that stuff. And in the military, when you go to school, that's what you do 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, period. Okay? Not including lunchtime. And in basic electronics, they gave us a radio in a box. It was just a box of parts. You put it together, it becomes a radio, and that's how you learn receivers. Okay? In advanced electronics school, they gave us a box and had a big picture tube in it, and it was a TV. And by the end of 6 weeks, you put that together, you now know display systems and sound systems and everything there is about TVs. Okay? And basically, that's all we did to it. Just put it together. Oh yeah, that's how it works. So instead of just including learning basic theory or advanced theory, you learn practical application. Basically, we come out of that school being junior engineers. We could get it. It would be the equivalent of second year college engineering. No, way past that. When I retired, I came here and I was going to school, and I think in 6 weeks in electronics school, we covered what we did in the first week in the Navy. You go there to learn something, you learn that. Yeah.
So at what point did Vietnam come into the picture for you?
65. Between when I got out of advanced electronics school in 62, I went to Norfolk, well, Dam Neck, Virginia, which is near Norfolk, and there I went to guided missile radar school. And once I went into missile systems, that was it. I never went back to gun systems anymore, not officially. So the guided missile radar school was, I think, about 20 weeks. Most of the advanced schools are about 20 weeks long. So I got there in October '62, and I left in March '63. And by then I was 21, so it was a whole new ball game. I went to sea in San Diego for about 4 months. Then I went to Great Lakes to school to learn the weapon direction systems. And from there, I went to Bremerton, Washington, where there's a ship being built. It's called pre-commissioning detail. And you get to be there with the people who are building the ship, see what goes into it, and all that kind of thing. It's like watching your house being built.
So this was the ship that you were assigned to, that you watched being built?
Yeah.
And how long were you on this ship?
I was there from December '63 until basically December '65.
So did you go to Vietnam?
Yeah, we deployed in Vietnam in '65. We put the ship in commission in June '64. Deployed in April '65, and we got back about 6 months later. And by then I was first class petty officer, E6, and I went to shore duty as an instructor at Guided Missile School in Mare Island.
In the States?
Yeah.
So how much time did you spend in Vietnam?
When you talk about the Navy in Vietnam,
Well,
yeah, you're talking 20 miles off the coast. That ship was my first deployment. By then I'd been on 4 ships, and I'd only been out of the States for 6 months. Okay. So a typical deployment is 6 to 7 months. The way ships operated during peacetime was in port. When you're stateside, you're in port 2/3 of the time. Okay. And you go out and you do local operations because it's expensive to send ships out to operate. You know, it's like you driving your car, okay? Watching it on TV, it's cheaper to just keep them home and do drills in port. So we'd go out for about 1/3 of the time, in port for 2/3 of the time. And when you're in port, you still do drills. You run drills every day. The old saying is, you train like you fight, and you fight like you train, and that's exactly what we do. You train constantly. You get up, you have breakfast, you go to muster, they put out the word for the day, and you go back and you run drills, you run maintenance. Nowadays, they just plug the ship into a computer. Well, in the old days, there was a box on the pier. That was a trailer. They drag it out to the pier, plug the ship in, and you could run a whole war simulation right there. Nowadays, they don't have to do that. You can put the whole thing in a PC.
So when you're practicing shooting missiles, I mean, pardon my, not understanding missiles real well, but did you ever actually fire them?
Oh yeah, when we go out to for local operations, we fire missiles. They'd have 2 or 3 major exercises every year. You have to go out and fire just to see how the systems perform. When you plug into one of those computer simulations, it's always going to work right. Okay, so when you go out and you do local ops, then you see how it really works. Okay, when you're sitting alongside the pier, you plug into the ship's receivers, it always receives the proper target. The target is always doing the proper thing because it's a simulation. And when you go out to sea, things break. You run out of parts. I had 4 radars. If one radar breaks, it's down. Okay. If 2 radars break, now you can take parts from one radar to get the other one. So you have a minimum of usually 3 radars running at any one time. Now when you're talking the 60s and 70s, and when you talk electronics in those days, electronics are still fairly new. This cell phone I have has more capability than the computers I worked on. I was the frequency coordinator for the task force. All the ships out there basically have the same capability, and they all operate on the same frequencies, unless you tell them otherwise. So someone has to coordinate which ship's going to operate on which frequency. And we used to load the coordination program from paper tape. Okay. And that was long before floppies, or mag tape.
So, a couple more questions in Vietnam. Did your ship see any action?
No. Typically, there was a carrier at Yankee Station, one at Dixie Station. Yankee Station was up in the northern end of the Gulf. Dixie Station's down in the Mekong Delta, down in that area. Those ships down there were basically doing strike support. They were mostly gunship. When I say gunships, I'm talking about destroyers with guns, okay? My ship had two 3-inch guns. A 3-inch gun is, well, it has a bullet that's 3 inches in diameter, which is, those came out at the end of World War II, and it operates on a proximity fuse. And a proximity fuse has a transmitter and a receiver in it. It just sends out signals, and when it finds something, it gets a signal back, just like a radar does, and it says, target, and detonates. Well, you can't shoot at boats with that because they're on the water. Okay, so you're always going to have a signal coming back. But 5-inch, they had shore bombardment projectors, which is just basically a big hunk of metal with powder in it, and you fire it and it hits the ground and blows up, just like it did during the Civil War. Right. Okay, except you could shoot a hell of a lot further. So the gunships were down in the Mekong Delta, and they would do fire support, and the aircraft would run strikes. Up in the north, the ones up in the north, I'm not sure what we did in the north. In '65, when we first got there was very little going on that I remember. But while we were there was when they first hit the missile bases up around Haiphong. As a matter of fact, we were on that operation.
So you were in the north?
No, I was on a ship.
But the ship was stationed?
Well, we would transit back and forth.
Oh, okay.
We just kind of wandered around. You got to remember, okay, I was 21 years old. I didn't care. I was just sitting there on the ship. As a matter of fact, one day I happened to mention that they had lots of thunderstorms over there, okay? And that's when I found out we were in Vietnam. And I'd heard it on the news, but I didn't know where it was. And so I went and looked at the charts, and I saw the Gulf of Siam. And then I realized, this is Indochina. And that's what happened to it. Because all of a sudden Indochina had disappeared, and they just renamed it.
So did you spend any time on shore?
No.
How about Japan? Did you get a chance? Did you get a chance to get off the ship?
Yeah. Yeah, that was my first deployment. On my first deployment, we hit Pearl Harbor. And in those days, Pearl Harbor, it's fascinating. It's just a bunch of tourists. From Pearl, we went to Philippines. From the Philippines, we went to South China Sea. And coming out of South China Sea, I think we went to Japan. And then back to the Philippines, and then back home. And so that you're looking at a 6-month loop. You hit Hawaii, Philippines, Japan, and we might have gone to Hong Kong, I'm not sure. But typically in-port period is about 3 to 5 days. And the rest of the time you're out. The longest we were ever out on patrol between ports was something like 42 days.
So tell me about the 70s then. The next generation. Right?
The
next
70s.
decade.
I went to instructor duty at Mare Island in '66. It was E5 there. And in '66 I was 24 years old. And I got married while I was there. And then...
And where is this?
Vallejo, California. Mare Island. Basically the San Francisco area. Napa Valley. I was an instructor there. I was teaching weapon direction systems. And got married, made chief. I was impressed. I was a 25-year-old chief. And one kid had gone up for chief, and he passed the exam but didn't get promoted. So he was upset. He was going to go apply for warrant officer, which I am now. And he said, well, wait a minute, I was walking over to the exchange to buy some cigarettes. He said, well, wait a minute, I'll walk over with you. And I was standing there waiting for him, and the woman came up and she says, sign this. Oh, I'm not applying, he is. I filled out this paperwork, you're applying. So I applied for warrant officer. Out of the 10 people that applied for it, I was the only one that made it. And that's how I became an officer.
And this is what year?
68.
So,
Well,
late
I made it
60s.
in 67. Got selected in 67 and advanced in 68. And at that time I was 26 years old. Most people made warrant officer when they had almost 20 years in. I had 9 years in.
So that allowed you to teach, or that
That's just another advancement.
just an advancement, a little more money?
Actually, there was not more money.
Really?
No. Normally when you get promoted to a higher grade, you make more money. Okay. But I was a chief, okay, and I had 8 years in, and I was making good money. But a warrant officer at that time in service made less money than a chief did. Okay. It's like you got promoted sideways. You got more responsibility, but they had what they call a save pay clause. You could never get promoted and make less money than you did before. So I kept the same money that I made as chief, okay, which didn't work out too well either because I was also getting proficiency pay. It was an additional $75 a month, and in '68, $75 was big bucks. So I lost that because I was no longer enlisted, okay. And we went and wrangled back and forth on that, so they finally let me keep it because they had said I could erroneously, so they let me keep it. And then when I made W-2, I was actually making more money as an officer than I was as chief. And, you have to understand about instructor duty. In the military, anybody who's E4 and above is an instructor. And particularly if you're E5 and above, you're definitely an instructor. That's where all the instructors come from. So when I left my 4th ship, I went to instructor school and leadership school, and they teach you how to be an instructor. One of the things they do, they said, you have to do a 5-minute presentation on anything. And once you finish that, we'll give you the next assignment. So we did something simple, how to build a rock or something stupid like that. And then you had 2 10-minute presentations. You had to do an intro on the first 10 minutes and then finish up on the second 10 minutes. One kid taught how to fold an undershirt. Okay? He started off with, you plant cotton. And then
That's extreme.
and then you weave cloth.
Did he pass?
Of course he passed. We were all sitting there going, wow. Yeah, I just put the damn thing on. Yeah, so and then for the second 10 minutes it was how to select shorts. You could either have boxers or briefs. And they go with the undershirt. So you have to be imaginative. When you're standing there instructing something for 8 hours a day, you guys are just sitting there nodding off. You have to hold their attention. You have to be able to talk, think on your feet.
So how long did you stay as an instructor?
From April '66 until August '68. And when I got commissioned, I got reassigned to another ship out of San Diego. But meanwhile, they called, you've heard it in the old movies, the 90-Day Wonders. It's a officer candidate school.
Okay.
Well, we didn't go to officer candidate school because that was a long school. But what we did, we had a 6-week version of that school. Basically, it was what officers should know about the Navy. How to be an administrator. That's what we really learned. You learn naval history, it's called naval orientation. You learn how to be an administrator, to be a division officer. The way the Navy is organized, you have work centers, work groups, and you have divisions, okay, departments, and so forth. Well, you learn to be a division officer or an assistant division officer. The officer corps itself, for instance, if you go to college and you major, I always say animal husbandry and basket weaving, okay? You can come out and get a commission because you attended college. And that's where officers originally came from. They were the rich, the landed gentry, educated people. And basically it's still that way. If you have an education, they will train you to be an administrator, okay? But You come out, OCS, that's what OCS does. It trains you to be an administrator.
So then you were commissioned, you were shipboard again?
Yeah. We called it charm school. Once I went to charm school, I went back to sea, but I had been assigned to a ship in San Diego, and they were getting ready to deploy. And the captain said he didn't want a new warrant officer, or any new officer in the job that I was going to be doing. So I got reassigned to another pre-commissioning detail out of Bath, Maine. Okay. And I went there, and I had done that before. But building ships is interesting. So I went there, and I got there in November '68. And the temperature was way in those digits. There was a foot of snow piled up on my lawn. I went down to Norfolk to school, and I got back a month later, and there was 2 feet of snow on my lawn. And the temperature never went above 60 degrees the whole time I was there. But, that was my 5th ship, and it was my first ship as an officer. And it was an interesting.
Another destroyer?
No, just we had destroyers, and at the end of World War II, Congress decided they would not authorize any more cruisers. Okay, so when they had these ships already designed, so they cut 50 feet off of them, and they called them destroyer leaders. Okay, like a destroyer was 2,200 tons. A destroyer leader was something like 8,000 tons. Okay, it was a big ship. Unfortunately, about that same time, the Russians were building up, and the Russians were building cruisers. Okay, they had more cruisers than we did, so we renamed our destroyer leaders to cruisers. One day we were on the DLG, which is Destroyer Leader Guided Missile. The next day we were on the CG, Cruiser Guided Missile.
Same ship.
Same ship. And we were actually got a set of orders, and everybody was officially transferred.
Was that right?
Yeah. The DLG was decommissioned and the cruiser was commissioned.
So how long were you on that ship?
I was there from October. Had orders to the ship from October, and I got there in November, and I got transferred in October '71. So basically it was a 3-year tour.
And then what?
From there, I went back to Mare Island. I was teaching at Academy School again at Mare Island. This time I was teaching officer courses. And that's where I started also working in race relations and equal opportunity. That was what I called during riot season, the late 60s, early 70s. So I did that. Basically, I left the Guided Missile School section and stayed at the same command, but I was doing race relations. I was doing encounter groups and stuff like that. And that was interesting work.
And how long did you do that for?
Until 74, 71 to 74, I was at Guided Missile School in Mare Island. By then, it had become Naval Combat Systems Training Command. It was no longer called Service School Command. It was Combat Systems. Combat Systems included fire control, tactical data systems. When you think about computers, those are the people that were there. The fire control people were there, and the actual hardcore computer people were there. Okay. And to us, computers were still, it was just a box that's set in the corner, and we just ignored it. And then we got digital systems, and that was a game changer.
And this was around 74?
74, yeah. When I left there, I went to the Long Beach, which was a nuclear powered guided missile cruiser, CGN.
In California?
No,
Long
the
Beach.
ship. The ship Long Beach.
Oh, okay.
It was a CG, but it was a nuke. It was the only nuclear powered cruiser that they built. Okay. And it was basically a test platform for nuclear propulsion. There was the Long Beach, the Enterprise, and the one of the DLGNs, I forget the name of it now, the Bainbridge. Okay, and they used to operate as a task force. And because it was impressive, you never had to refuel them. You could send them out there and they could run for 19 years or something like that without refueling. What they didn't let people know was you still needed fuel oil for lubricating and stuff like that. You know, it's like if you replace your car's engine with an electric engine, you still have all the other stuff still there. Yeah. So I went to the Long Beach, and the Long Beach was built in the late 50s, okay? And the Long Beach had the same systems on it that the DLGs had. Plus, it also had a long-range missile. Okay? When they upgraded the Long Beach, they forgot about the systems that the DLG had, those type of systems, which are short range, and they never upgraded it. And I got to Long Beach. I mean, I was about 3 levels above that, and I had to step backwards to the Long Beach just to work on the systems on there.
Well, you knew that system. Or maybe
Not
you
really.
had forgotten it already.
I went to school on it in '62. We're now talking '74.
Okay.
So it was like going back to the Stone Age. And I was there for 4 years.
On Long Beach.
Yeah.
Then what?
After that, I went to what they call it, Board of Inspection and Survey. It's in the Army they call it Inspector General. It's similar to Inspector General. It's a group of people that go out and they do inspections on ships. Before ships go into overhaul, the Board of Inspection and Survey goes out to find out, is this ship fit for continued service? What do we have to do to it to get it up to today's level? And that's what I did that for about 4 months. And one day we went to the ship. What happens is, every week you're on a different ship. And you might have a week off here and there, okay, but you're on a different ship. You get there on Monday, you do the import, administrative paperwork stuff, looking at how their record keeping and all that. And then you go to sea and you see the ship perform at sea. And you come back in, you're right up here. And it always fails, whatever it was that you were expecting. It's just a formality. That's why you go there. You know it's going to fail, but you have to determine how bad it's going to fail. So I did that for about 4 months, and we went to a USS England. And when I got there that morning, I was checking in, and there was some guy that was also checking in. I said, "Who's this guy? He's somebody important?" He said, "No, he's been on shore duty for 3 years. He's coming back to the ship." I said, "You mean he's coming back to the same ship? No one does that." He goes, "Oh yeah, a lot of our guys do." By the end of the day, I had terminated my shore duty and agreed to stay on board the England. Okay. The guy that I relieved, he was also a Chief Warrant Officer at W4, and they'd agreed to let him retire. He was and the guy that he worked for had orders for postgraduate school at Monterey, and so now they were going to deploy, and they had nobody. So I said, "I'll take the job." My captain was displeased that I offered to do that without talking to him. I figured, well, since I'm at sea every week anyway, I might as well be on the wrong ship. And I remember laughing at that guy for coming back to the same ship. I did 6 years on a 3-year tour. I stayed there too.
So you like that ship?
I like that ship.
Everybody liked that ship.
Yeah.
It seems.
As a matter of fact, going to ships reunions, I've gone to every reunion they've had since I've known about it, and I'm only going to one other reunion.
What was the name of that ship?
England.
The England?
It was named for a guy named John England. During World War II, there was a group of ships out operating in the South Pacific, and they ran across a submarine, and everybody tried to nail the sub, and finally the England nailed it. And so they said, "Oh, I wonder what he's doing out here." And so they looked at the charts and said, "Well, if he's out here, he has to report to somebody, because communications in those days was short range." So they sent ships in each direction about a day out, and they found another submarine. As it turns out, there was a whole string of submarines. They were running relay, setting up for the invasion of Midway. Okay. And England, they said, "Well, England, since you got the last one, you can go get this one." England killed 7 submarines in 7 days. And it got nailed by kamikaze at the end of the war, pretty close to the end of the war. And the original England had been named for somebody that was killed way before. And then the England got nailed, and so they built this ship, and there was another England. And that ship, I think they decommissioned it in '92. It was put in commission in around '63, '64, same time as my first pre-con.
So you spent 6 years on the,
Yeah,
was that your last ship?
yeah. Basically, I retired because I ran out of places to go. There were no more promotions. W4, typically we say, well, I'm a W4. Well, I can bless you. I mean, really, as a W4, I shouldn't have even been at sea. Typically, W2s and W3s are at sea. They don't have W1s anymore. So W2 and W3 at sea. W4 is usually an administrator somewhere. I would have been running one of those advanced systems schools. And I could see, if I did that, some 18-year-old Dover would have told me what I could or couldn't do to him. I didn't want to end up giving him a demo and running him for a career. So I just stayed at sea.
So after you retired, how did you end up in Cherry Hill? What brought you from Louisiana to Cherry Hill?
Actually, I came from San Diego to Cherry Hill. On my last deployment, like I said, I ran out of places to go. My detailer had been asking me to give him a request for where I wanted to go for about a year. Finally, one day he called me and says, if you don't tell me where you want to go, I'm going to send you to Mare Island, a Dam Neck. I'll just pick a place. And I said, well, I'll retire. And so he said, okay. And about 6 months after that, he called me and said, did you ever submit your letter for retirement? I said, oh no, I'll get around to it. He said, you submit your letter. So I submitted my letter for retirement and immediately sent out resumes to General Dynamics and Westinghouse, and, Western Electric, all the weapon systems people. And we had this gun called, you might have seen it on the F4, the Phantom aircraft, a Vulcan machine gun.
Sure.
Okay, this thing fires 6,000 rounds a minute. Okay, we had to slow it down because once we get underway, we can't rearm it. We have to take our ammo with us. The aircraft can fly back, so we slowed it down to 2,000 rounds a minute, and we fired depleted uranium. The gun is a 20 millimeter gun. Okay, the bullet itself was about 7 millimeters. It would have sleeves around it, and you fired this thing, and it was built to kill incoming armored warheads. And it was an interesting gun, but the ship from the British ship, I forget the name of it now, but they had gotten hit by an Exocet, Sheffield, and back in the late 70s, went to war with Argentina.
Right, the Falkland.
And so that gun basically was to ensure that that never happened to us. But it was like everything else, it was rushed into service. And the gun really wasn't that reliable. When it worked, it was very impressive. But it was hard to maintain, and people were ill-trained. They weren't ill-trained, there was no experience level. Okay.
So what was your involvement with this gun?
My involvement was, I was a maintenance officer. I ran all weapon systems, and I hated that gun. And I wrote reports that, in no uncertain term, said how rotten the gun was.
This is while you're while you're still in the Navy.
Yeah, that was my job.
Okay.
When something doesn't work, you say, what's wrong with it? How it should be different. I'd also sent a resume to General Dynamics to be a field engineer. And they said, no, we would like you to come up and interview to be a manufacturing engineer. So I said, I don't know anything about manufacturing. Said, we make a thing called the Vulcan Phalanx. I said, yeah, I hate that gun. He said, yeah, we've read your reports. Said, anybody who knows that, who hates something that much, must have a better way of doing it. And they were going to hire me. It turns out my reports had basically put the project on hold. And we had a Block 0, and Block 1 never hit the fleet until after I retired. So I never got to work on that. Instead, I went, when all of these resumes I put out, the last thing I did was that there was a paper called Navy Times. There's Navy Times, Army Times, Air Force Times. And they have a recruiting section in there. So I filled out a resume and sent it to them. And I didn't think anything of it. We were getting underway for going out for pre-deployment operations. And I didn't think anything of it. And I got a call back from a guy, Zidek, remember him so much. Zynek and I had made chief together back in '68, and Zynek was here, and Zynek invited me to come out for an interview, and I did, and I got the job here.
And what company was that?
GD, it was called RCA at the time. You know, the funny looking building up here about 295?
Sure.
That's where I worked.
With the Aegis
Yeah.
system in Morristown.
Yeah. And strangely enough, when I went to that advanced electronics school, I had gone back to Louisiana in between the ship and school, and I got tired of being home, so I went to the base and I checked in a week early. Because I checked in a week early, I started school in May instead of June. Everyone that started school in June went to a project called Typhon. Typhon was the forerunner of Aegis. So I never got to work on the Aegis until I retired.
So are you still up there?
At Aegis?
Yeah.
No, I retired. I left there in '92. I went into computer work full time. Accidentally again.
That's what you're doing now?
No, I'm retired now. I worked in computers until '01. And after that, I worked at Rich Camera doing camera sales and that kind of thing. I was a fitness trainer for a while. And I worked for Goodwill teaching fiber optic systems and stuff like that. So now I just have breakfast, take lots of pictures, go to happy hour.
You have kids?
Yeah, my son's 52 years old. He's retired Army. Said he'd been in the Navy all of his life, wanted to see what something else looked like.
So anything else you want to tell us for perpetuity? It sounds like an interesting life.
Hollywood couldn't have done it better. I'm serious.
That's great.
Yeah. I enjoyed every day. Somebody said every day. Well, maybe one day I didn't like it, but I'll get over that. I enjoyed what I did.
That's great. Sounds wonderful. Anybody have any other questions?
Oh, one other thing I did, something most people don't know about. There's a program called Naval Sea Cadet Corps. Sea Cadets is, for people, all these kids, they see all of these movies, and they all want to be fighter pilots and SEALs, and that's it. But there are no 50-year-old fighter pilots, and very few 50-year-old SEALs. You got to have something that you can do when you're 50 years old. The electronics you can do, administrative work you can do, things where you have to think instead of all the physical stuff. Well, there's a program for kids that are 10 through 18 years old. They can join the program. They actually have to pay to join the program. And they can, basically it's perpetual boot camp for us, but for them it's always something new. We teach them things like, this is the military. This is how you march, And the typical question is, why do we have to learn how to march? We're going to ride into battle, sit in a comfortable seat. No, it's not about marching, it's how to be part of a unit. We teach them, this is the military. Okay? This is what it's like. This is the drudgery of, when most people seen all of these World War II movies and all that. Warfare today is mostly you sit around waiting for something, followed by a few seconds of just absolute fear, and then you sit around and waiting for something. The only time I've ever even been close to being in combat was during Vietnam. They were flying troops in and out of there on 707s, and one of them had flown off towards us, and we couldn't see their identification code, and we almost shot it down. But other than that, anyway, these kids, they go through 9 days of boot camp instead of 9 weeks. And after that, they can go to any school that the Navy offers a shortened version of it. For instance, you want to go to photography school. If the photography school is 20 weeks, you go to 20 days. Actually, most of the schools are 7 to 10 days long. I was a division officer out at Fort Dix. I ran a boot camp at USS New Jersey. And the latest assignment that I had was at Staten Island. I was the commanding officer of a unit there. That's why I still have uniform. I'm not just some old guy that runs out of jeans until he wears his uniform. So up until last year, I was still actually using the uniforms. But all these kids are, one kid that was there shortly after I got there, he went to the Naval Academy. He transferred to Marine Corps. He's now attending flight school. He's a second lieutenant in the Marine Corps. I had two of them went to the Army. And most of them, it doesn't matter whether the kid's going to go to the military or whatever. Once he goes through, like I used to tell their parents, okay, you're not joining Sea Cadets, your kid is, okay? And here's what I'm going to do for your kid. When your kid is 18 years old, or whatever day he leaves high school, he will be ready to go out and take care of himself. Okay? The relationship between you and that kid is going to change a little bit because he's no longer going to be some dumb, scared kid, He's going to know how to talk to you. He's going to know how to talk to people like me. When he goes for a job interview, he's going to look the guy in the eye, and he's never going to have a problem talking to the guy.
What's the name of this program again?
Naval Sea Cadet Corps. And it's a good program.
Sounds great.
So from 10 until 18 years old. And then it would do a lot of kids. The thing is that it builds confidence. We always advertise it as, we want people who want to be a leader. Okay? We will teach you to be a leader in any situation, doesn't matter what. So that's what I did until last year.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Okay. Could I see the result of this?
I don't know how we're doing this. I mean, I don't think you can watch it now.
No. I've got it now.
At some point you'll be able
On
to
the
get
website.
them a copy, right?
Yeah, at some point. I've been putting up sections of it at a
Okay.
time because I can only load so much time per segment.
On YouTube.
It's
So,
on YouTube?
yeah, so when I edit it, I'll just put, I'm trying to do like 8 minutes or so, like 3 segments. So I'll give everyone the same amount of time.
So you have an email address, I assume?
Mhm. Yeah, I can give that to you.
Email when it's up and running.
Yes. It's gpevans@aol.com.
I have that here and I'll give you mine as well.
I've recorded what we said, what we've been doing. It's good.
I appreciate
Okay,
it.
have fun.
It's great.
Yeah. I think I'll go have breakfast.
It takes a while.
Wish I had talked my youngest son into that.